Mabel the Lovelorn Dwarf, Chapter 7. Mabel, Emma said in a soft, sing-songy way as she shook me awake. Mabel, what are you doing here? I was still exhausted from yesterday's competition. After I'd come home, I'd gone straight to bed. Max had tried to wake me earlier to join them to watch today's events at the games. I pretended to be asleep then. Emma was too persistent to allow me the same opportunity. I'm not going to the games. I pulled the covers up. Emma tugged them off me. Me neither. I want to spend a quiet day with my best friend before your fame makes you too busy and popular to have time for me. I snorted. 5th place doesn't make anyone popular. Emma smiled as she yanked me out of bed. You'll see. Come on, it's lunchtime and I'm hungry. Okay, but then I need to practice. Regionals are coming up. I got to my feet and automatically moved into my stretches. No practice. You've earned a day off. Mikey said so. Get dressed. If you're not downstairs in 5 minutes, I'm going to come up here with a bucket of ice water. All right, all right. I reached for my blue tunic. I dressed, brushed and braided my beard while at every 1 minute interval, Emma yelled out how much time I had left. She was on the 10-second countdown when I reached the bottom of the stairs. I'd expected to see all my friends in the living room, but it was just Emma. We used to do everything together, just the two of us, but hadn't since our beards started growing in. This would be nice. I'm here. What's the plan? There's a new movie playing. I thought we'd go watch it. Will the theater be open with the games going on? It is. I checked on my way over. Let's go or we'll be late. What about lunch? I packed one for us. Emma picked up her bag, which had been sitting on by the door. Gilliam's rows were empty. Everyone was in the arena watching the games. It was kind of nice not having to see or talk to anyone but Emma. Are you sure the theater is open? Yes, I told you. I checked first. You walked all the way to the theater, then back to my place? And she packed us a lunch? That was a lot of unnecessary effort on her part. It wasn't like today was a special day. Well, first I checked the Bearded Prospector, but it's closed, as are all eateries and taverns in Gilliam. I passed the theater on my way home to pack us a lunch and saw that they were open. How did she have the energy for all of that? I wasn't sure I had enough energy to walk from home to the theater, never mind anywhere else. We could have just stayed at my place. Do you want to go or not? Emma sounded hurt. Of course I do, I said. This is really nice. I just can't believe all the work you went to. Which means you should be all the more grateful. Come on, Mabel, lighten up. It's fun. The city is empty. We're not mining. You don't have to practice throwing. When was the last time you had a day or even just an evening like this? I didn't have to think hard. My second day at the mines. I see your point. I had been itching to get back to the theater to see a movie. Thanks. Of course, that's what friends are for. We arrived at the theater. I was surprised to see a few others in the lobby buying tickets. I really thought everyone else would be watching the games. There were almost as many dwarves here as there had been the last time I'd come. The theater's reputation must have been building. Hey, Mabel, Oliver called out. Emma. He'd just bought his ticket. I waved as I put down my payment and picked up my ticket. I hadn't seen Oliver since my first week at the mines when he'd been moved to the night shift. Congratulations on qualifying for regionals, he said with a big smile. Thanks, I blushed and lowered my head. It was kind of him to congratulate me, but I wished he'd been able to say congratulations on placing in the top 3, or congratulations on winning the games. We're so proud of our Mabel, Emma said, putting an arm around my shoulders and hugging me. You should have heard Ricky in the stands, Curtis said, joining us. He was bragging to everyone who would listen that you wouldn't be throwing it if it weren't for him. He practically took credit for your success. I wouldn't go that far, but it's probably partly true, I said. If it hadn't been for that challenge, I doubt Mikey would have ever offered to coach me. Don't let Ricky hear that, Oliver said. Do you two want to join us? Sure, I said. Oliver and Curtis walked in ahead of us, holding hands. Ah, the joys of being a male dwarf, free to love whomever you want. I picked up a new movie magazine on my way in. So, what brings you two here to the theater instead of watching the games? I asked. With me on the night shift, we hardly have a chance to see each other, Oliver said. With the mines closed, we thought it would be nice to spend some time together. They were on a date. If I were on a date with someone I hardly got to see, having people join us would be the last thing I'd want. It was kind of you to ask, but we don't want to intrude on your time, I said. It's hardly an intrusion, Curtis said. We just didn't want to be surrounded by thousands of dwarves. Oh, all right, if you're sure, I said. You'll hardly know we're here. We gave our tickets to the usher at the door to the main theater. Emma kept elbowing me for some reason on our way to our seats. Emma and I left a couple of spots empty between us and Oliver and Curtis. I loved the theater even more this time. Last time it was all just so new. I didn't know what to expect. Now I knew, and I wanted to watch it all. From the way the screen was hung, to the candles lining the walls, to the wizard's crystal at the back of the room. Even though neither Aramis nor Severin were in this movie, and I didn't know what it was about, I didn't care. I knew I was going to enjoy it all, or I would, if Emma stopped poking me with her elbow. What? I asked, turning away from watching the projectionist at the back of the room. He likes you. What was she talking about? Who does? The usher. He smiled at you. Specifically at me? Yes, here he comes. Excuse me, he said, walking up to us. Are you Mabel Goldenaxe? She is, Emma said before I had a chance to answer. Great job in the games yesterday. It's nice to see someone who actually still lives here compete and do well. Thank you. He wasn't interested in me. He'd only watched me compete. I just want to make my city proud. Well, good luck in the regionals. He hesitated a moment longer than left. I turned back to watch the projectionist prepare the wizard's crystal. Ugh, Mabel, he was totally flirting with you, and all you could say was, I just want to make my city proud. He wasn't flirting, I said, wishing she'd leave me alone so I could just watch the projectionist and the precision required for him to tap the tines of the fork just right to project the pictures. He was just being nice. He went out of his way to talk with you, leaving his job post to do it. Whatever. The projectionist readied the crystal in the tines. Even if he wasn't actually flirting with you, which he was, and Oliver and Curtis would confirm it if they weren't so busy, any time a fellow talks to you, it is an opportunity to turn it into flirtation, and even better, courtship. You do know that, don't you? Yeah, I said, and I missed the moment the projectionist tapped the tines. How did he know how hard or light to tap them, or where? What if he tapped them too high or too low? How much training did he have for the job? That's how I got Zach. Emma's voice was smug with satisfaction. So that's why we're having this day together, so she could brag about courting Zach. It was a great accomplishment. She'd been trying to get him to court her for ages. Congratulations, you two will make a cute couple. I found that no matter how much I tried, I couldn't concentrate on the movie now flashing on the screen in front of me. A drama of the treacherous expansion of an early dwarven settlement. I kept dwelling on my performance at the Gilliam Games and how I needed to do so much better if I was going to qualify for the Dwarf Games and raise the reputation of my family. And yet I knew that for Da, what would help the family most was if I had a mate. How could I find a mate if I didn't know enough to figure out if a male was flirting with me, or how to turn plain conversation into flirtation? How did Emma even know about that stuff? Sure, she had an older sister, but they were hardly close. They were always in competition with each other. There was no way Rachel would ever give Emma advice on finding a suitable mate, not until she had one herself. By the time the movie ended, I'd made up my mind. I decided to find a way to understand males. Rather, I needed to find out what everyone else inherently knew about relationships and flirting. I decided to try the Gilliam Library, hoping there would be a book that could help me figure this out. I told Emma I wanted to go home and have time to myself. The house was never quiet, and there would only be a few hours before Da and my brothers returned home. I wanted to take advantage of the break. I thanked her for the outing and left her at the turnoff to our cottage. I had to take a few side streets to avoid Emma seeing me, but eventually ended up on the road to the library. I huddled into the crevice of the mountainside to protect against the chilly afternoon. Snow and ice covered the path. If Aramis were in Gilliam, I'd know exactly what to do. Nothing with Aramis would be mixed signals or guessing. If he were flirting, he'd know right away I loved him, and I'd know he loved me too. Why did my mate have to be a dwarf? The librarian sat behind her computer. Counter. May I help you? She asked without looking up from her book. Just browsing, thanks, I said. Shelves of books filled the cavern from the floor to the ceiling and wall to wall. As the only patron, I took my time searching the categories. Geology, mining, weaponry, self-help. Self-help? The top shelf, back corner of the library, carried the self-help section. The books covered in dust and out of alphabetical order. But Gilliam had a self-help section? I wiped off the spines of the books. 101 signs he's interested. Male dwarf body language of love. 102 signs you're interested. Female dwarf body language of love. And meet him and mate him. 1001 ways to meet your perfect dwarf mate. Who knew there were these kinds of resources? I also found books on history of dwarves in movies and the art of movie making. I signed the books out and prepared for a full night of studying. I might start with the books on movies to ease myself in. The dimness of the crosscut made me sleepy. I stayed up late the night before reading the books from the library. Yawning, I scratched at the surface of the rock, still marveling at the origins of movies. The technique had been discovered by Radier when he had led an adventure with Aramis and Severin. He'd used his crystal in his staff to light their way. His staff was bumped against the wall. The crystal vibrated, and suddenly they were seeing and hearing themselves on the wall of the cave. It took some time for Radier to figure out how he had recorded their travels, but once he had, he knew he had something special. It wasn't until the original recorded material could be accurately duplicated to dozens of crystals that movies became a viable enterprise. By the time I went to bed, I couldn't sleep for thinking about what it would be like to see the original recordings of those first movies. They were still around, archived in Latham. Maybe someday I'd get to travel there. It wasn't in dwarven territory, but there were enough dwarves there that I could maybe one day find a reason to go. When Philip arrived in the crosscut, he joined me. After half an hour of mindless scratching, I put my hand on his arm to stop him, then pulled his axe back. I tapped my own axe on the rock. He tapped his axe on the rock and felt its texture. Do you want to do it? You do it, I said. Using his medium pick, he cracked the shell. Excellent. I couldn't wait to tell Frankie. Every emerald bed we'd found confirmed his beliefs in this crosscut from the start. If only the earlier miners hadn't given up so quickly on this crosscut. Frankie always said that sometimes you had to cut away a lot of rock before you found the gems, and the gods always rewarded those miners who were patient and persistent. Philip and I pried away the outer shell, hiding the emeralds. Emma rushed in. Sorry I'm late. Zach wouldn't let me get away from him. You've been late a lot recently, Philip said, not looking away from his work. Your excuses wouldn't pass with most other miners. Your first priority is work, not Zach. Sorry, Emma replied. Though I didn't look at her, I heard the pout in the tone of her voice. What's going on? Mabel and I found more emeralds, Philip said. Fabulous! Emma sorted through her tools to help us. Get your larger axe and start working to Mabel's left. There's still a lot of rock to get through before we can find the edges of this bed. Can't I help you? I still don't have my first emerald, she whined. We need you to help keep searching. Besides, you have to find a new bed to get a first emerald. Is this a punishment for being late? No, it's where you're needed. Philip brushed away stone and grit from the gems. After a long day, we had excavated several dozen emeralds, and I was ready for a celebration. It had been so long since I'd joined my friends at the Prospector. I'd almost forgotten the wonderful aroma of ale and pipe smoke, the crush of the crowd of fellow miners, and most of all, how comfortable it was to be with friends. Jimmy and Ben joined Zach, Emma, Philip, and me at our little table. One of the top axe throwers in all of Gilliam, and she still graces us with her presence, Jimmy teased, setting down a round of ales in front of us. Congratulations, Mabel. Philip was also bragging about you and the productive stope you have. If I believed what it said in 101 Signs He's Interested, Male Dwarf Body Language of Love, then I might think Jimmy had just flirted with me. But I knew Jimmy far too well. Just because he smiled didn't mean that he was interested in me. We'd been friends since we'd learned to walk. Jimmy smiling was no different than what he normally did. We're doing all right. Philip and I just found another bed of emeralds this morning, I said. The mining gods must love you. If you ever get tired of working with Emma and Philip, we could use someone with your talent working with us, Jimmy said. According to he's interested, he just flirted with me, except I knew that wasn't true. We'd worked well together in the toy workshop, and he probably wanted to work with me again. Still, if he had flirted, I should tease back, but not make it obvious in case I misunderstood. I'll keep it in mind. There's no way I'm letting her go, Philip put an arm around me. Definitely flirtation, except after today, I shouldn't be surprised he didn't want to let me go. We were a great team. To prove me right, as quickly as he put his arm around me, Philip withdrew it and chatted with Ben about the day's find. How many first emeralds do you have now? 3? Jimmy asked. This is my 4th. Jimmy whistled. We were lucky to have such a productive crosscut. I thanked Frankie every day for getting me in there. You'll be moved to Ruby soon, Jimmy said. I'll need to find dozens more emerald beds before any promotions come my way, I said. Why did this have to be so hard? Why couldn't a fellow just say, Hey, you have 2 braids in your beard. I'm interested in finding a mate too. I like you. Want to go out with me sometime? See if we're a fit? How many firsts do you have, Emma? Ben asked. Emma straightened her cap and stuck out her bottom lip. None yet. But you'll get one soon, I jumped in. Besides, getting a first isn't everything. Emma's been great at exposing the fullness of the beds. Emma looked past me, her mouth gaping open. What had I said? I hoped I hadn't offended her. Dearest gods of ale, Mabel, would you look at that? Everyone at her table looked in time to see Emma's sister chatting up the fellow standing next to my brother Max. Emma smirked. Oh, thank gods. For a minute there, I thought Rachel was after Max. You say it like courting Max would be disgraceful, Jimmy said. He's a great fellow. There's nothing wrong with him. I just think Rachel should aim a little higher, that's all. Higher than what? Jimmy demanded. Mabel's family has a great reputation. You would be lucky to attract one of her brothers. Please. Mabel's brothers are fun, but there's a reason they're uninterested in mating. No one would have them. If Emma thought so poorly of my brothers, she might as well believe no one wanted me either. My stomach muscles clenched painfully. She probably meant females should want mountain dwellers first. Still, maybe we weren't the wealthiest of families, but in my lifetime alone, my Da and brothers had started with almost nothing and earned a fair fortune. Maybe that was the real problem. My mem had absconded with all our income. No one would want to take a chance on our family, not with that kind of history. Jimmy sat back and glowered at Emma from behind his tankard. He oozed aggravation. He knew she was right, and there was nothing he could say to defend my family. I liked that he wanted to, but it embarrassed me even more because he couldn't. Then, as though she hadn't insulted my family, Emma said, Mabel, we found out this morning my mam is pregnant again. She and Da were so excited, they barely got to the words out. They were giggling and kissing so much. At the rate they're going, could have a dozen more dwarflings and still not get tired of each other. I would never be able to say my mam and Da had been so in love, or that they'd had dozens of dwarflings. Had my mam left because she tired of my Da? She must have. If she weren't dead, why did she have to leave us? Why couldn't she be dead? At least then it wouldn't look bad on me. Or if she had died in battle, of course. If she died giving birth, it would be a life sentence to never being loved by anyone. Excellent news, I said. Good thing there are others to look after the wee ones now that you're older, looking to start a family of your own. Eventually, I said. Thanks, Emma beamed at Zack. Poor Da. I could forgive his constant questioning me about finding a mate. My brothers had done what they could to elevate the family name. I had to refocus and do my part. I wished it didn't all rest on my shoulders, but I would deal with it. I needed to take a more proactive approach to finding a mate. I read my books again tonight, the relationship ones, not the movie ones, and decide which one had the best method. If you're enjoying Storytime with Ebby and Sherry and the Adventures of Mabel Goldenaxe, don't forget to subscribe below to make sure you don't miss a video.